About 2.5 years ago, Sabu sat in the same house you're in now, Chris's house, on his sofa in one of his little wherever the room was, I don't know, and announced on my podcast that he was retiring. He was done. He was done with wrestling. His body was hurting too much, and this was a few months after Melissa Coates had passed away as well. So obviously his heart just wasn't in it. Right. And then he said the only reason he'd get back into the to do another match is if, one, he was guaranteed a huge payday, and two, if it was against someone really high profile on a high profile event, like, and the example he gave was Brock Lesnar. Now, forward to a couple of weeks ago, Sabu was on Briscoe and Bradshaw's podcast and said that he is thinking of doing one more match again. He said the time off has done him well. He's physically recovering, and he would like to sort of have like a retirement match or even a retirement series of matches sort of on his own terms in that sense. And I interviewed Rob Van Dam very recently, and he confirmed everything that Sabu had said, that this is something that's been in his mind for a little while. Yeah. What do you think of Sabu returning? I think he's 59, around that age now. And what's the best way? What's the best course of action for him to get back in the ring if he is indeed going to do so?
Well, the last time I saw him, he was in great shape. There was a point a while back where he looked like he was getting pretty frail, but he looked like he had gotten back in great shape. The last few times I've seen him, and it's been, I think, WrestleCade, was that the last time we saw him? Yes. He seemed a lot more clear-eyed and clear-headed. I'm a huge mark for Sabu, and I count him as a brother. He was a transitional figure in wrestling. There aren't many of those. I know you're going to be talking about Tommy Rich. I consider Tommy Rich that. Tommy Rich set the template for what baby faces became ever since. And prior to that, they weren't so much that vein. I was a traditionalist. I wrestled like the guys that came before me, maybe a few additions in or some things taken out, but pretty much a Dominic DeNucci or Bruno Sammartino fan would recognize Shane Douglas and his style as being, reflective of that. Sabu came in ECW and was doing things that nobody had ever seen, and doing them in a way that was so solid with psychology. He was the first person I remember ever seeing hit those kind of insane high-risk moves, but sell them himself. So it wasn't just like, he splashed on you and he gets up, ta-da, big S on my chest, I'm fine. And it just, everything he did fit like a glove. Because it was Sabu, it worked. And, because of the way he was trained in the business by Sheik, his uncle, that it really, he took he strove with every single move to make it make sense and keep the psychology consistent. The first time I saw him at the triple jump moonsault, we were all in the back, and ECW was the only place I ever saw this, where the entire locker room would be watching and give you feedback when you came back, supportive. And I'm sitting there watching, and he sets the chair up. The guy's laying there, and he runs the other way. What the hell's he doing? Jumps over the guy with the chair, boom, back over the chair. I jumped out of my chair like a kid, like I was 10 years old. Oh, it was so impressive. The Arabian face buster, and he was the first to break through tables. And then on top of that, the sheer guts that he had when the barbed wire literally shredded his bicep. And he taped it up real quick and kept on going to the match. And the barbed wire matches that he and Funk had were epic. And, the three-way dance, kudos to Terry and both Terrys, Sabu and Terry Funk, that, I was the guy that got to tag along, and go along for that ride. So I think, yes, Sabu would certainly deserve, for the legacy he's already left, that final match. The only thing I would say as a caveat to him is to don't delude yourself. Make sure you can go out and do this and not do any kind of irreparable harm or whatever. But I don't think the fans out there would be disappointed one bit to see one more great match from Sabu. Flair set that template, right, with having his last match, and we had Steamboat, and it becomes a thing like your last match. I would be somebody would pay to watch that. Sabu is, like I said, one of those guys that transformed wrestling and really brought it up into the modern age. At the same time, he could still do the old school stuff. He could do the chain wrestling. He could do the other stuff that was done prior. But the 2 points to me with Sabu, among so many others, that really put the exclamation point, Sabu exclamation point, was just the sheer audacity of these new moves that nobody had ever seen done before here in America. But then the fact that he would also sell them on him as well. To me, it just oozed realism. And you go back and you watch a Sabu movie. I think it's a lot of what we talk about with the criticism of the current product. You'll see a kid go out and do something, hit some real high risk move, and he jumps right up and he's fine, or he gets hit with something and he's down, and then boom, right back up and flying around. Sabu never did any of that. Sabu would be 5 minutes later still limping if he'd hurt his knee or something on the move that he'd done to you. Everything fit like a glove. So yeah, I'd love to see him have that match, and I'd be curious to see who it's against. He was something special in our business, and it was a pleasure to be in a dressing room with him and having and getting to be the mouthpiece, talking about a company that had a guy like that in it, right? Because he was so explosive, and so transitioning to wrestling. Count me in as a watcher.